Hey guys, I'm Jen Banks with Banks Canine Solutions. I'm a dog trainer located in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Offer a lot of in-home training as well as board and train. Moon pie, don't eat that. Out. Good. Sorry. If you'd like to learn more about my services, you can visit my website. I'll post it in the comments section. You can also check me out on social media. This is my dog training Q&A. And I'm going to get into the first question right now. So first question is, we have a 4-year-old Spitz type dog. He came to us 2 years ago from a local shelter. He was very anxious and had many triggers, but has settled down. The problem is he barks at everything. When we leave, when we come home, when it's time to get up, when it's dinner time. I think he's very excited, but life does not know. I think he's very excited by life, but does not know when to stop barking. He's a sweet boy overall. So looks like we're trying to curb the barking a little bit. First thing, dogs bark like they just do. So if you don't like barking, don't get a dog, right? There are dogs that are more quiet than others, but most dogs are going to use their voice at some point. Moon pie, get over here. Sorry, guys, down. So that being said, excessive barking definitely needs to be stopped. So a bark here and there is one thing, but constant obsessive barking is not good for the dog's mental state, especially with an anxious, nervous dog. A lot of times vocalization can fuel that anxious state of mind. So there are a few things you can do without me knowing anything else. Like I said, I usually spend an hour with a client talking to them before I even give them any advice. So there are a lot of questions I would have. So I'll take that into account with my answer. First thing I'd want to know is the dog crate trained? And if not, why not? Crate training is a great way to help calm the mind. So I would definitely start crate training. I would also examine your own behavior. Most behavior we don't like in a dog is also behavior that we accidentally reward. So you might not think it, but the dog is probably getting something out of barking, even if it's just that he likes the sound of his own voice or her own voice, whatever the sex of the dog is. But things that you can control, like giving him attention, that's something I would start to examine. Are you looking at him? Are you talking to him? Are you touching him? Are you moving towards him? Are you opening a door for him? Are you getting his food? Like what is he getting when he barks? If it's literally nothing, which I doubt, then we'd move on to some correction stuff. But the very first thing you want to do is actually try to change your behavior. So even things like, no, knock it off, and telling the dog to stop and look at them, that can be rewarding. You come up? Okay, you come up. Good girl. So you might think you're telling him to stop, but he's obviously not getting it. So if you've crate trained and if you've examined your own behavior and you're trying to curb that, the next thing I would do is make sure he's not allowed to look out windows. So looking out windows and looking out doorways and whatnot, and just kind of searching for things to look at and bark at creates a very unsettled mind. So I would use blinds. I would make sure he can't jump on furniture to see outside a window, but I wouldn't allow him to examine his neighborhood because he currently thinks that his job is to patrol, and it's really not, especially when you got an anxious, fearful dog. Last thing you want them doing is patrolling anything. They are bad at it. So I'd look at that as well. And then, of course, you can correct the behavior. But if you just try to correct the barking without changing anything else, you will fail hard. When you're working with a dog, when you're living with a dog, it's not just about stopping their behavior. It's about usually changing what's going on in the environment to help them stop the behavior as well. So that's everything I gave you first. And then I use squirt bottles for correcting dogs. It doesn't work for every dog, but that's the first place I start, is with the squirt bottle. If the squirt bottle didn't work, meaning I gave it the college try over a few days and the squirt bottle didn't work, I might use a bark collar on a dog, but even then I'm careful about it. Bark collars can create a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear if they're not used properly. So it's something that you might end up wanting to actually bring a professional trainer in, especially if you've got an anxious, fearful dog. The barking is the symptom of the problem. The problem is the anxiety and the fear. So until you address the confidence issue, just stopping the barking isn't going to be enough. So you might actually want to look into bringing a professional in. All right, moving on to the next question. My Papillon jumps on everyone to greet them. It bothers me more than anyone else. I'd prefer he jump a few feet away in the air or sit calmly, but he's just a jumping bean, going off people's legs. It was easier to correct with my previous dog, who was much larger. How to stop this circus dog behavior? Good question. And this brings up a really good point where people are super focused on the behavior and not the mental state behind the behavior. So jumping on people and jumping 2 feet away from people is the same mental state that you don't want. So actually, I'd say you don't want that at all, because what you're dealing with is over-arousal around people, which is causing the behavior. Again, the behavior is the symptom, not the problem. The problem is your dog thinks that's how he acts around people. So the very first thing you need to examine is how he's interacting with all the people that live in the house. Because I'll tell you what, if he's used to jumping on everyone that lives with him, especially when they come home from work or come home from school, whatever behavior your dog practices daily with the people they live with, they're going to practice it that much more with people they don't see as often if they're social friendly dogs. So I would examine that and make sure you're not accidentally allowing him to jump on you. I have little dogs. I let my dogs jump on me. That might sound crazy to some people, but they're easier to pet if they jump on me. That's just kind of how it is. That being said, they don't just jump on me whenever they want to. It's a permission-based thing, so I'll actually invite them into my space and invite them to jump up on me. If I don't do that, I do correct them. Back to the squirt bottle I talked about a minute ago, you can just kind of hold it, tell them no, squirt them, see if that works. I'd also ask if this dog is crate trained as well. A good management tool for when you're expecting guests is to put the dog in the crate until everyone arrives and gets settled, and then bring them out on leash after they've arrived. But, make sure people aren't setting him up to fail. If he's super excited and everyone's like, oh, he's so cute, I want to say hi to him, they're setting him up to fail. Stop talking to him, stop looking at him, ignore him completely while he's in that state of mind, and don't give him any attention until he's calm. Dogs act like that because we teach them to act like that. We teach them that if they act excited and they're really ramped up and jumping all over the place, we think it's cute, especially with a little dog, little Papillon jumping around. Most adorable thing ever, right? But it's not what you want. Or is it? You got to ask yourself that. So he needs to learn that behavior no longer gives him attention. And you need to wait until he's lost interest in you. And then you would call him over into your space, or your visitors would call them over into your space. I don't have kids correct the dog. I think only adults in the household should correct, and I don't ever expect my guests to correct my dogs. That's my job because they're my dogs in my house. So I would never ask my guests to correct my dog unless I felt that the guests would be really successful, which most of mine wouldn't. All I do is ask them to stop patting them or ask them to ignore them. And I use my crate a lot, and I use timeouts a lot as well. So if my dog is jumping up and getting really aroused, I'll just do a little timeout in the crate and try again. So we've got one more question, and it is, we own one female Shih Tzu, 3.5, getting a little boy Shih Tzu puppy soon. Any advice on introducing new baby to the family? I'm assuming you don't mean a human baby, hopefully. If you mean a human baby, that's a totally different subject, and there is actually a really good free online class on Udemy on that, which if you're talking about a human baby, let me know, and I can send you the link to that class, but I don't think you are. And I'd stop calling your dog a baby, because it's not a baby. It's a slippery slope to get into when we start thinking that dogs are children, especially little dogs, because we try to communicate with them as if they were humans. And it's a big disservice to dogs, because dogs are a different species than us. They speak a different language. They have different social cues. They're a totally different world. So try not to view them as humans because it will create a lot of problems. If you're bringing a new dog into the house, first thing you want to ask yourself is your current dog friendly? I don't know. I don't know you at all. So if your current dog is not friendly, I probably wouldn't bring another dog into the house without working with a professional. Another thing to keep in mind is any sort of bad habits your adult dog has, he could very likely teach the new dog. So think of barking, excitement in certain situations, stealing things, chewing things. Some dogs are really good at learning by observation, so the new dog might see that stuff happening and learn from the current dog. So if you haven't already, I definitely recommend you be training your current dog, crate training, leash walking, so they're not pulling, making sure you've got them in tune. And then depending on the situation, the way I like to introduce a new dog into my house is I teach existence before interaction. So I use a lot of exercise pens, baby gates, and crates just to teach the dogs to be cool and calm together. And then once I get a better feel for how everything's going, I'll do some leash walks and then eventually some play in the yard. But basically, I need those dogs to see me as the one in charge, which means the adult dog, if I say stop, the dog needs to stop. And if I don't have that with my adult dog, I shouldn't be bringing a new dog into my house. So you need to have the ability when your dog is playing to say enough or get over to me, come here. And if you don't have that, you need that because adding a second dog into the house adds a pretty good distraction. So if the two dogs are getting really rough with each other and you need to tell them to stop and your adult dog isn't listening, there's no way the puppy's going to listen, right? So make sure your adult dog is trained first, and then make sure you also spend time alone with your adult dog. So whenever you bring a new, I'm assuming it's the same with kids, but whenever you bring a new dog into the house, or whenever I do, I like to make sure that I spend time with my adult dogs separately, just like one-on-one time, whether we're just like hanging out on the couch, going for a walk, just us, going in the yard, just us, whatever it is. New puppies especially, I highly recommend a puppy class for socialization. Learn how to play with other dogs, learn about how to deal with fear, how to deal with all the housebreaking stuff. So depending on your location, I can certainly recommend a puppy class. You just have to leave it in the comment section of this video. And it does have to be the original video. So if someone has shared this video and you leave a comment on that shared video, I am not going to see it. So you do need to go to my page and leave questions and comments there, or else I won't know what's happening. So yeah, lots of structure in the house. I have a bunch of videos on YouTube on structure for a puppy, so you should definitely look into those. And make sure you're going to a good breeder. I'm assuming because you're getting a purebred dog, you're either working with a breeder or a rescue. There are a ton of crappy puppy mills out there, and it breaks my heart. So if you're researching breeders, big red flag, someone who just asks for a deposit without asking you any questions, someone who's willing to fly a puppy without across the country without asking you any questions. I much prefer to get a dog locally or fairly locally if you can, especially for pet purposes. I mean, if you need like some sort of competition dog or a dog for a specific purpose, I definitely understand importing a dog from across the country. But if you're just looking for a pet, you should be able to find that in the New England area or wherever you are. I might even know some Shih Tzu breeders if you want to chat a little bit. So yeah, I hope that helps, guys. I don't do this weekly, but I try to do it as often as possible. So look for it again soon. I usually post that I'm going to do a Q&A on a Sunday, and then I post answers the following Thursday. So if you haven't liked my page, definitely like my page so you get that notification so you can get your questions in for the next time. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye.